Hello guys, Charles here and welcome back to my channel. So a really important thing to consider when we're learning new concepts is how to actually apply them in context to musical situations. And in fact, I get asked this quite a lot here on the channel and by my students. How do I actually use this? How do I apply this? I understand the concept. Now what do I do? And it's a surprisingly open-ended question because there's so many different approaches. So for example, I used to think what I'll do when I learn a new concept is I'll write a solo over every single tune I know, only using that concept, and then I'll be really, really brilliant at it. But what I failed to consider in that is that I'm not really a very disciplined person. So although it's great to consider doing that, it never really happened. I've done it on a few occasions, but you might be the sort of person who can do that and is disciplined enough to do that. So that would be a great option. However, we're going to look at something a little bit more realistic today. So many great players argue about the importance of melody. Peter Bernstein, Garzone, Lester Young, great melodicists, they really argue how it's so important to be able to cleanly and clearly play the melody as well as possible. Now, because of that, I decided, well, I'm going to use the melody as a framework around which to include new concepts. And so that's the idea we're going to be covering today. So all we're going to do is any pause in a melody where either there's a held note or a bar or two rest, we're going to try adapting whatever our concept we're working on to that space. Most of the time we're going to be playing just the melody, and between phrases of the melody we can insert our concept and see how it works. Now there's so many benefits to doing this. A few that come to mind though, the first of which is you're going to really develop a real true understanding of that melody. And it means that straight away, whatever concept we're working on, we're putting it straight into context, which is the beautiful standards that we love as jazz players. We're also avoiding thinking of jazz standards as melody and then changes as two separate things. We're straight away working on our improvising within the framework of the melody and learning to appreciate that melody and changes are really one and the same. And we avoid any embarrassing scenarios which even, less than 10 years ago, I used to go to jams and call a tune and the piano player would say, "Are you going to take the head?" And I'd realise, well, I didn't really know the melody because I used to just play along to backing tracks on YouTube. I knew the changes and I knew I could play a killer solo, but I couldn't even play the melody. So what good is that? So you're going to save yourself that embarrassment if you always use the melody in your practice sessions. Another benefit is you're going to learn to play between the melody. That's the whole point of this exercise, is that we're playing when the melody isn't, which means you're going to be a really interesting and supportive player. You're not going to get in the way of the melodicist at a jam, for example. If you're not playing the melody, you're going to have phrases that can fit between what the melodicist is performing. So you're going to be a really tasteful and supportive player. And I think a third benefit to taking this approach is you don't need to be over-faced by my original thought, which was, well, I'll just write a solo using just this concept over the whole set of changes. We only need to apply it in a couple of different places per tune because we're only playing when the melody isn't. So that means we're not actually going to be playing that much and it's not really that overwhelming. Now, the advantage to doing this is we can cast our net wide and we can really broaden our repertoire by learning lots of tunes and finding, well, in this tune we've got these contexts, and now in this tune, oh, that's a Lydian context. I've never seen that one in another tune before. And you see all these different contexts across all the tunes rather than trying to get every single bar of this particular tune mastered. So just before I dive into an example here, some melodies, of course, are going to work better than others. It depends on the length between the phrases. So ballads make sense. Obviously, there's probably a lot more space in a ballad, but even faster tunes can have a lot of space between the notes. So those tunes tend to lend themselves better to this approach because we're trying to play when the melody isn't. So the longer the melody isn't playing for, the more we can apply our concept. And the final thing to say is, as always, this is an exercise. This is not necessarily a playing approach. If you just take one concept and apply it every time the melody isn't playing, it's going to sound weird. So a good way to immediately help alleviate that is to try alternating concepts, and that's the one we're going to do today. So we're going to take two concepts we talk about loads on this channel. The first is the Random Triadic Approach, and the second is just some sixth diminished ideas. And I'm going to play the melody to I Love You. Now all I'm going to do is play the first bit of melody, the first phrase, and when there's a pause at the end or a held note, I'm going to cut it off short and go into some random triadic approach. Then I'm going to continue picking up the melody and then go into some sixth diminished, back into the melody, triads, back into the melody, sixth diminished, alternating, just like that. Now, a couple of things which are easier said than done, but to focus on when you're doing this, is to try not to chop off the notes of the melody. We are shortening some of the notes so that we can, rather than just playing a long held note, we can play a phrase or a concept. But I'm trying to not chop it off too much. I probably did, but I'm trying to play. I'm trying to still give the melody, although we're shortening the note lengths, I'm still trying to make them tenuto, nice and full in length. The other thing I'm trying to do is distinguish between the melody notes and the concept through dynamics, so and articulation. So the melody, I'm really trying to sing it out. And then whatever my concept is, trying to play it a bit quieter, a bit more like a murmur. So I've got whatever I'm doing there, I'm just trying to do it behind the scenes nice and gently. Because again, if we were playing with a melodicist, someone else taking the melody, we're just trying to add a little bit of interest in that space. Now, some concepts are far more distracting than others. So the random triadic approach is particularly distracting. I find my way down here and then I think, oh, where was the melody note again? And it's really, really good for that because, again, it's proving, do I really know my melody or am I just playing within my comfort level? So playing something like chromatic cells or random triadic approach or any other outside concept that takes you away from the melody really proves when you find your way back that you did know where you were. So I hope you found that one useful and that you feel you've now got another framework around which to practice your concepts and work on them. I really find with this approach, the ideas I play are much more likely to stick, by which I mean I'll often, I'll sit for 10, 15 minutes playing one tune like this and I'll find like almost a little lick or a little idea. And then I'll move on to another tune and almost every time it's as if that idea that I generated has gone straight into my subconscious and I find myself playing it in all sorts of other contexts. Please do keep the video suggestions and questions coming down below in the comments and also let us know, share with us how you like to apply context to your concepts. Please do give this video a like, subscribe, ding that notification bell, and share with any of your friends who you think might find this helpful. And as always, I hope you're all doing very well, getting plenty of practice in, and I very much look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.
Roll up, let me embed a story you'll never forget. A drip, drip, drowning in debt now. You can't buy your way out.